Well, the project seeks to improve rangeland and ecosystem management practices of smallholder farmers under conditions of climate change in Sesfontein, Fransfontein and Warmquelle areas. Now, to give us more details, I'm joined by the Executive for Business Strategy and Performance Management, Aina-Maria Iteta. A very good morning, rather good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for being here this evening.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good having me.
Now, obviously, before we start, good rains in the capital city. Good news for all farmers out there.
Very well indeed. Much welcomed news for the farmers.
Yes.
Climate change issues, of course. We hope it's not going to flood.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, give us a brief overview to come back to our interview on the Green Climate Fund that is funded project titled, am I pronouncing it correctly, SAP 001? Or
yeah, in short, we call it SAP 001, SAP 001. So it is, of course, the abbreviation from the Green Climate Fund that they are using. Nevertheless, in Namibia, we have also shortened the acronym of the project. We call it IREMA. Definitely, the Green Climate Fund is currently the biggest global climate finance available, of which the Environmental Investment Fund of Namibia is currently accredited as the only national direct accredited entity. Of course, as given that authority by our national designated authority, which is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Tourism. So, of course, we are in the process of implementing this project. It have passed its mid-term review, and of course, we are in the last phase of implementation, and of course, a lot has been happening, and we are really happy as far as progress is concerned at the moment.
So, share with us how SAP 001 and IREMA projects are interlinked and how they, intend to address climate change or climate-driven vulnerabilities.
Well, this is really an intervention that was earmarked and still, of course, for the Kunene region. I think we are all aware Kunene region is one of the most vulnerable regions for the past good 6-7 years. Persistent drought have been happening. Of course, as an entity mandated with resource mobilization, we have to prioritize and complement government effort. And of course, we have now to come up with this project to address the issues of drought. Mostly farmers in Kunene region have lost their livestock, and of course that is both large and small stock, and that is because of the persistent drought that has been happening. The rangeland is totally destroyed equally. This project is also having that component to address the issues of land restoration. And of course, there are other components also. Of course, you could see the project is more focusing on the 3 areas, as you briefly introduced, Fransfontein, Warmquelle, in that round of Korihas area. And of course, the project overall is worth $10 million US. That is round about 150 or 40, depending on the exchange rate where you are receiving the funding, million Namibian dollars. So we hope this intervention would really have a targeted effort to transform the livelihood of these people. So there is a number of interventions. Of course, horticultural production is one of them. As much as Kunene is really dry in terms of receiving rainfall, the region is actually endowed with underground water. So we are now trying to tap from that resources to make sure that the underground aquifers, which is supplying water that is flowing naturally, and this is the basis where we are actually setting up a small scale, you're going to call them green scheme for the communities. Of course, there is a Warmquelle, which is an ongoing green scheme for the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, but it has been dormant for some times. An injection of more than 30 million Namibian dollars is actually part for that particular investment in that specific green scheme. We have other investment coverage. Of course, we are looking at the production of fodder production for the livestock. As we are saying now, the rangeland is totally destroyed. We need to supplement and see how do we feed the remaining stock and ensure that communities restock their livestock. The project also have a component of small stock revolving, and this is actually to supplement what the Ministry of Agriculture also have an existing small stock revolving program. As of lately, there is a lady called Margaret. She received around about 20 ewes, 1 ram. As we speak right now, and we visited her on the 7th of December, she's boasting double that amount, so in fact more than that. And already at this juncture, she have also revolved. That means she have already given 5 ewes. Ewes we are talking about, these are female goats, so that they can reproduce to other farmers. And that is really a progress in the good direction, that farmers are standing there, they are owning the initiatives, and they are ready to restock, to adapt to climate change. And that is actually the objective of this program.
And you are talking about the rangeland that has been destroyed or depleted rather. Is there hope of replenishing it and restoring it to its former, glory?
Well, in the time where we are living right now, climate change is here to stay, adapt or die. I think that is the bottom line. Definitely, as the government, of course, and EIF, a state-owned entity, of course, efforts are in place to make sure that the interventions we are putting up, they are also helping in that regard. Definitely, issues of soil erosion, Kunene is worse because now the plantation is also not good, so land cover is really minimum. That means you have your soil, topsoil being really washed away or eroded by winds. So, however, under this program, slowly but surely, we have a reseeding program. We have tree planting program. Those are the ones that would act as barriers of wind breakers, to protect the topsoil and prevent it from continuous eroding. I think the mechanisms are there, and we are hoping for the best.
Now, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Natural Resources visited the Kunene region to familiarize themselves with the GCF-funded projects activities being implemented by the Environmental Investment Fund of Namibia. Talk to us about the findings on the impact of climate change and also the review progress made as far as the IRIMA project activities and also the interventions that are concerned.
Well, first and foremost, let me appreciate the effort from the Standing Committee on Natural Resource. They are doing quite a good job. It's an oversight, and of course, as public administrators, sometimes you need that reinforcement, and they are doing their best from the legislative point of view as the other arm of the government. So the Standing Committee was actually in Kunene visiting several projects. That was in August this year, towards the end of August. When we went there, the IREMA project was really at its infant stage, and most of the activities were taking off. Of course, they made a commitment that they have to go back. They would want to see if there is really progress, or we are just preaching and announcing numbers of monies that are coming in. Well, we are happy on the 7th of December. They make their second round of visiting, more specifically the Fransfontein community garden. It is a 16-hectare community garden, and we have actually invested around about 12.3 million in that particular garden. A lot of infrastructure is set up. We have to establish water reservoirs because they are getting water from the fountain. And of course, rectified fence by solar. Of course, Kunene, you have issues of elephant. Definitely the moment you invite crop-human-wildlife conflict issues are inevitable. Right. So you have to create those barriers to see how do you live and coexist with our wildlife that are also contributing to our economic growth. So literally what is happening there, production is on. The garden is under production. Currently 10 hectares is fully under production. They have planted maize meal at different stages. They are already harvesting fresh, and of course some we have to be dried because the volume is quite big. Right. Watermelons, tomatoes, onions, butternut, pumpkin, you name it. So literally what is happening there, the production scale is really moving to that of emerging farmers. And of course, as the project investment, we are hoping that definitely there is continuous support from the Ministry of Agriculture. Of course, good thing is that the project is embedded within the ministry. The project management unit sits under the Ministry of Agriculture. So the community needs to continuously be empowered. Currently, we are also reinforcing training from the onset when they start up. We have some community members who are attached to the project to make sure that once we leave, at least there is continuous production. Of course, there are a number of challenges here and there, of course, that are not just faced by Fransfontein, but of course, we are hoping definitely together with the regional leadership, we can overcome those challenges.
Well, just to round up our interview, with a prolonged drought and lack of adequate water, what measures is the IE or EIF and stakeholders putting in place to supply water to these local communities?
Well, when it comes to water intervention, of course, as I said, the project interventions are multi-phase, and water supply and water security intervention at this juncture, EIF have plus minus rehabilitated more than 168 boreholes. These are boreholes that belongs to communities in communal areas and mostly definitely, of course, belonging to rural water supply. So we are complementing that effort. Some were not supplying, some of course were using diesel. Of course we are saying we need to decarbonize. We have to retrofit them with solar and of course reducing cost to the communities. So water security is really one of our priorities, and mostly we are rehabilitating underground water because, especially looking at the available resources, Kunene being dry, definitely your only hope is to rely on underground water and the aquifers that run freely.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us, Ms. Iteta, and we are certainly looking forward to seeing some of those products, the produce, coming onto our markets here all the way to the city.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Of course, that being the Executive for Business Strategy and Performance Management, Aina-Maria Iteta, ending our discussion. It's now time to take a look at the news, local news roundup. Stay with us.